So we're getting ready to make our roof, and our roof is going to be completely detachable so you can easily get in and out of the house. And what we're going to do is we're going to have it sit on the house like so. And we're going to make a shingled roof out of black cardstock. And our pieces for our roof are 3 1/4 by 7 3/4, and you need 2 of them. And for our first piece of the roof, we're going to need a 3 3/4 inch wide strip of cardstock by 7 3/4, which is the length of our roof. And you're going to score this 3 3/4 by 7 3/4 inch piece of cardstock at 7/8 of an inch, 1 7/8 of an inch, and 2 7/8 of an inch. And that's going to allow you to fold these 2 edges up underneath, like so, and then fold this in half, so that when it sits on top of the roof, you have this rolled edge, just like we do on our house. And now I'm going to show you how to make it look like shingles. To make our piece for the shingles, we are going to take a 7 3/4 inch by 12 inch piece of the black cardstock, and we're going to score it every at 7/8 of an inch. Okay, and then it'll be cut at 1 7/8 of an inch. So I'm actually going to make another score line here so that I know where to cut. Then I need to go 7/8 of an inch from this one. So that's actually going to take me, excuse me, that's going to take me to 2 3/4. And then we go an inch over to 3 3/4, which is where we'll cut. Now I need to go 7/8 of an inch, which is 4 5/8, and then over 1 inch to 5 5/8. That's where we're going to cut. So I now go 7/8 of an inch over, which is 6 1/2, and then over to 7 1/2 to cut. We want to go 7/8 of an inch over, which is 8 3/8, 9 3/8 inch to cut. 7/8 of an inch takes us to 10 1/4, and then an inch over from that is 11 1/4, and that's where we're going to cut. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these, and then I'll show you how we fold them all together. So now you're going to take all of those black pieces and fold them under. And then we're going to adhere them all. I'm folding them under just to make the score line easier for me to see when I go to adhere them. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to put a 1/2 inch piece of tape right along the edge. So we're going to kind of glue this down to itself. Okay, so once that's down, let me get your scoreboard back, and you're going to center this piece with the folded edge up on your scoreboard. So this will be centered at 3 7/8 past the center, and we're going to score just up until you can feel the tape. That's all. And then go over an inch from each side. Okay, so that's going to give these little score lines. Now all we're going to do is then cut on those score lines up to the tape. Just cutting straight in. like so. I'm just going to give it a rippled edge. So we're now going to take this. I make a line 3/4 of an inch in. Okay. And then we're going to peel off this tape here. And we're going to adhere this. Alright. So that's going to give us these shingles here. Now, for our second row of shingles, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put it, and we're going to put it centered on our mat. And again, that's going to put it at 3 7/8 off center. But then we're going to move it over a 1/2 inch, which is going to be 3 3/8 instead of 3 7/8. And we're still going to score at 6 inches and every inch off to the side. From there. And the reason we're doing it this way is because that's going to make each row of shingles start at and stop at a different place. And the reason we want our 2 rows of shingles to start and stop at a different place is because on an actual house, shingles don't line up perfectly. So when we go to put this one down, you can see how the shingles are now offset, which is exactly how we want them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to adhere this a 1/2 inch up from the one we just stuck down. So measure 1/2 inch. Remove your tape and stick your shingles down. Okay, and that's the start of your roof. So you are going to just keep going like that until you get to the top, where you're going to finish it with your end cap piece. This piece, that's going to go over the top to just round the whole thing off and make it look clean. So I'm going to finish this side, and then I'll do the other side, and then I'll be back to show you how to stick them together. Okay, so once you have your 2 panels, you're going to need to adhere them together. So I'm taking a 2 inch by 7 3/4 inch piece of black cardstock, and I'm going to score it right down the middle at 1 inch. And then I'm going to cover the back with score tape, and I just have to trim this piece down because this piece was just a little bit longer than 2 inches. So I'm just using my Martha Stewart ruler and my rotary trimmer to trim it down to size. And this is going to be the piece that attaches the 2 halves of the roof together. And what we're going to do is we need to attach it in such a way the 2 halves of the roof have the exact same angle as the 2 side pieces of the house. So we can't just attach them to each other willy-nilly. We have to, because we could end up with a right angle, or maybe the angle we need is 33 1/3 and we end up with 45. So what we have to do is we have to actually have the pieces of the roof sitting on the house. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's actually not going to be that hard. And it's probably easier than if we tried to actually figure it out with math. So this way we're basically just going to eyeball it. So now that I've covered the back of my piece with the miracle tape, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the miracle tape. And I'm going to attach it to one side of the roof. And I'm going to attach it so the score line of the piece of cardstock is propped up, or excuse me, is flush with the underside of one roof on the edge where the shingles don't overhang. So you can see how on one edge the shingles hang off 1/8 of an inch. You want to attach it to the other side of the roof. And you can use either roof piece. It doesn't really matter because they're identical. So once that is stuck to the roof, I'm going to bring the body of the house back. And you're going to prop that on the roof of the house and hold it in place. And try not to do what I just did, which is once you get it in place, knock it off with your other hand. That is not a recommended technique. And so you want to just take a little bit of glue and run it along the edge of the chipboard. And we've done this before when we assembled the sides of our houses. So that's what I'm doing here. And this particular glue is best glue ever. Whatever glue this is going to get covered and it's not going to show. So you can use any glue you like. It doesn't matter at all. And once that glue is on there, you're going to just take your other roof piece and line it up and press it down into place. And that glue is going to hold the two halves of the roof in the right shape and give you exactly the roof that you need. So see how it fits on there perfectly? And it comes to a peak and everything. And that's exactly what you want. So now we just need to finish off the roof by joining the two pieces together. And I'm going to just do the same thing that I did with the other shingles. And I'm going to put a 1/2 inch piece of tape, this time right along the either side of the score line. So I'm not putting it on the score line itself, but I'm putting one just above and one just below. And that's going to adhere the flaps to the cardstock underneath, but it's also going to allow them to puff up a little bit. And that's just going to give it more of that three-dimensional look that makes this house so cute and realistic looking. So now that I've got that trimmed, I'm just going to remove the tape and just set that right on top of the dollhouse. And that's going to help hold my two pieces together. And then once you've done that, the only thing left to do is, and this is a choice that you have to make, you can leave your lid so that it just sits on top of your house. If you have a Christmas village that's all, laid out as a display, then it's probably going to be fine if the roof isn't semi-attached to the house. But if you're worried about someone picking up a house from your Christmas village and the lid falling off and hitting one of the pedestrians who's shopping near your Christmas hardware store in your village, and then you get sued by them, then, you might want to consider semi-attaching this. So we're just going to add some pattern paper to the underside of the roof so it doesn't look like a raw chipboard. And that is basically going to be done with 3 1/4 inch by 7 3/4 inch pieces of pattern paper from the collection. And I chose patterns of paper from the collection that had both red and green because the rest of the interior of the house has both red and green. And you're going to cut these pieces both to 3 1/4 by 7 3/4, and you're going to ink around all of the edges. And I used a Prima chalk edger to do that. So once I have those pieces cut and inked, I'm going to remove the tape backing and adhere them to my underside of my roof. And I just used the Miracle tape again to put this down. And throughout this project, you can use whatever double-sided adhesive you prefer for the most part. But I will say that the house will last longer if you use glue. Just because over time adhesive can weaken and glue is more likely to last in the long haul. But it doesn't really matter. Because those other adhesives will hold really well, and if the glue starts to lift anywhere, you can always just add a little bit more adhesive to that spot. So again, I'm just going to line up the other side and press it into place. And then I'm going to semi-attach it. And the way I'm going to semi-attach it is with the Tombow fastener tabs. And I'm actually going to cut little strips of the fastener tabs and adhere them to the roof of the house so that you can put them down. And in the video, you'll see me adhere them to the front of the house. I actually recommend that you adhere them to the back of the house. The reason being, you know, you're just a little less likely to see them. They're going to be a little less noticeable if you adhere them to the back of the house. Now you're going to need pretty small strips of this stuff, about 1/8 of an inch. So you want to just kind of cut 1/8 of an inch out of the middle. So it'll be nice and long because it won't have a ton of grabbing power with being so skinny. And you don't need it to have a ton of grabbing power. You know, you don't need the house to survive a hurricane or anything. It doesn't have to be, you know, rated for tornadoes or whatever, but you do want it to just not go flying across the room if someone picks up the house to see the mini album that's inside. And so this will get the job done. So what I do is I just remove the adhesive from one side of the tabs and place them down to the chipboard roof. And by just removing the adhesive from one side, that'll enable me to then peel up the other side. And once I have both pieces placed and their backs peeled up, I'll be able to come back in and just stick the roof down, and then everything will line up perfectly. And that way, again, I don't have to do any math. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the other piece down, and then I'll adhere my roof. So with the second piece, it's a little bit smaller and it's not as easy to handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stick it right to the roof, and then I'm going to go in with a pair of scissors and cut it off. So in order for that to really work properly, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to adhere it so that the part I want to cut off is on the inside of the house. If I have the part I want to cut off on the outside of the house, then, you know, my shingles are there and I don't want to risk hurting my shingles. That, you know, it took me a few minutes, as you know from watching the whole last video, if you hung in there for the whole time, that that video was 55 minutes. So I don't want to redo these shingles. So I'm just going in there with a craft knife to trim off the excess, and that didn't work very well. And so now I'm just going to go in with my trusty scissors. And so once that's done, I'm just going to peel the backing off, add the roof, and then that is that. So that's going to finish off this video for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you a quick and easy 4x6 mini album that you can put inside your house. And so if you want to make a house each year and add photos of that year's Christmas, each house can become a record of your family's Christmases. And you could consider labeling the fronts of the houses with the years made up to look like house numbers, so that you know which memories are contained in each house. So tomorrow we'll see that mini album, and please check the video description for more details on Thursday's launch party. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye now.